dream big. This life we live is way too short for you to wake up every day and not love what you're doing. And that's okay if you're doing it now, but you should be working towards happiness and what drives you. Find your passion. Like, everyone has something they like to do.
You are now tuning in to the Roughnecks podcast with your host, Cole Nixon. Much love.
What's up, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Roughnecks podcast. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to tell you guys about Desert Fox Golf. I've recently partnered up with them, and they have some awesome products that you definitely want to check out. They have something called the Phone Caddy, which is the best phone holder in golf. It comes in many different colors, and they even have ones with funny sayings on it, like, I work to support my golf habit, and it takes a lot of balls to play like me. If you are like me and like to use a golf app while you're playing, then this is the thing for you, because it holds your phone in a convenient location right on the golf cart. They even have a cigar holder attachment for it. One of my favorite things is their drink aid tumblers. They have these awesome 17-ounce stainless tumblers with a screw-on lid to hold your favorite beverage while playing around a golf. They have different versions, from the classic swing aid to nurse aid, hunting aid, fishing aid, and my personal favorite design, the Patriot Aid tumbler. Head over to desertfoxgolf.com and use the promo code Roughnecks for 10% off your order. But let's get into today's guest. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Roughnecks podcast. Joining me today is someone who I went to college with way back at Ohio Wesleyan in the old Dirty D, aka Delaware, Ohio. But this guest has been on 3 times, and now for a 4th, Carter Franklin, aka C. Frank Films. Welcome back to the Roughnecks podcast yet again.
What's up, man? Appreciate you having me back on.
Yeah, 4 times. This has turned into kind of a yearly thing. I think you've been technically a part of 3 years with 4 episodes, like 4 different episodes now, since we're doing this in 2023. But you've been on for episode 18 way back at the beginning, 66, 120, and now 151. Appreciate you being a returning guest, especially, and it's crazy to look at like how much your career and your craft has changed over that time span.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. Kind of to think back to the first time you asked me to come on, it feels like so long ago, but it really wasn't too long ago. And yeah, man, happy to be back, and again, appreciate you having me back on.
I usually don't like to ask my returning guests to give a background on themselves, but since yours has changed every single time that you've been on, you have your basic who you are, but just kind of give the Roughnecks listeners a update on who you are in a way.
Yeah, so I work full-time at Ohio State. I'm a social content specialist, work on our social and digital team, primarily working with our football program, shooting games, covering their events, and I also work part-time for the NFL as a live content correspondent, primarily out of Cleveland, shooting the Browns home games during the NFL season.
Why? So originally, I think the last time you were on, you were doing this, but we were doing a Q&A, so it was a little bit different of an episode. But the last time guest style episode you were on, I think you had just been working for the NFL at that point, and after the Myles Garrett stuff. And why did you end up deciding, kind of the transition, not only from the NFL, but transition to the NFL and the Ohio State? Was this always part of your plan, or did it just kind of pop up and you just thought it was something that you would enjoy doing?
Yeah, one part of it is the NFL is only part-time work. So during my first year with the NFL, I was still living at home at my parents' house. I think that was like a year after I graduated college. So I was kind of still living at home, still doing the freelance grind. Ohio State was always a place I kind of had my eyes on. I told myself from kind of the first moments I picked up my first camera, I knew I wanted to create at the highest level. And for me, that was Ohio State in the NFL. It's hard to find a place in college football that's better than Ohio State. So I knew that's somewhere I wanted to end up eventually. I didn't think it would be this early on in my career, but I'm fortunate that it ended up this way. But yeah, part of that was just kind of taking that next step from part-time freelance to, progressing to have a full-time position where I'm able to move out of my parents' place, get my own spot down here in Columbus. So I knew it was kind of coming, and that was kind of that next step for me.
Why football? Because I mean, you were a baseball player in college, so why is football the sport that you on it? Like, because we were talking just a little bit before, like, you know, you've been to a couple of basketball games, but you don't shoot. That's really given to other people. But why is football like your sport that you truly enjoy to shoot?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, honestly, wasn't really a big football fan growing up. Like, I didn't really go to too many games. I wasn't really watching NFL games growing up. But I'll never forget the first football game I ever shot was at Ohio Wesleyan, where we went to school, and like the energy with football is different. Like being on the sidelines around the guys and like in the pregame huddle and kind of like the energy around a stadium on game day is something that I haven't experienced around any other sport. And I think football is it's so gritty, just like the nature of the sport and how aggressive it is and the emotions you can capture as a content creator. It's so different and at another level compared to anything else I've been around. And that's kind of what initially drew me to it. And then, you know, taking that game day experience at Ohio Wesleyan where, you know, we had maybe a couple thousand fans on a game day, going to the NFL where I'm shooting in front of 80,000 people, and then taking it to Ohio State where there's 110,000 people in the shoe on a Saturday in Columbus. And like being in the tunnel before the game, that's an adrenaline rush for me that I don't think I'll be able to get anywhere else.
I was gonna ask, what's game day like in the shoe? Like, what's that kind of experience? Because I mean, like, you're basically living it like a player in a way. Like, I mean, you're doing everything a player's doing except being on the field actually playing.
Yeah. I mean, we get to the stadium about 3.5, 4 hours before kickoff. We'll go in, we'll get set up. It's kind of cool to like go in there like during the calm before the storm. No one else is in there but me and like some other game day staff setting up. But we'll get there bright and early. And then kind of the first thing on game day is the team walk. And the team walks from, if you've ever been in Columbus to a game day, they walk from the hotel where they stay the night before and they walk over to St. John Arena for skull session, which is pretty much like a pep rally where Coach Day and an assistant coach and one of the players will kind of talk to the fans in the arena. The band performs a little bit, kind of like hype up the fans, and then they'll walk from that to the stadium across the street. And then from there, it's pretty much go time. Like players will come out for warm-ups. They'll kind of go through their stretching warm-up routine. They'll go back to the locker room, put on the pads, come back out for pregame. And then after pregame is one of my favorite parts, which is the team running out of the tunnel, captain's walk, national anthem, coin toss, and then it's game time. But that 5-minute period from team run out to coin toss is always my favorite moment to be a part of. Like that's for me when the energy's the highest. That's when everyone's in their seats and cheering the guys as they come out before kickoff. And we obviously shoot the game, do our thing. We're kind of running around a lot, especially in my position, sending stuff up to the press box for our teams to post in game on social. Then after the game, obviously getting any post game celebration shots. We get the guys singing the alma mater, Carmen, Ohio. That's kind of a wrap on game day, but game days for me are typically anywhere from 10 to 12 hours long. So they're pretty long days, but they're exciting and they go by quick when you're having fun with it.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to be like, there's no way. I think you kind of talked about where sometimes like you had to step back and take the moment in, but like it is like, yeah, it's cool. I'm there on the field. I'm experiencing all this. Like I'm right here in front of the action, but like I am working. Like I have a job to do. Like, and it's sometimes it's tough to you can't get caught up too much. I feel like kind of how do you balance that of like, you know, you want to enjoy it, you want to take the moment in, but also like you are doing a job.
Yeah, I think I've definitely noticed progression from when I first started with the NFL to now doing it for 2 years and being at Ohio State for a year. Like when I first started, like being in front of that many fans, it's loud. Like it's really loud. And I think in the beginning, especially my first couple games in the NFL, that kind of affected me and the way I was able to focus and shoot. But I feel like I'm at a point now where I'm so dialed in and zoned in on what I need to shoot. It almost like it's so loud, it's almost silent, if that makes any sense. Like I'm just so locked into my camera and what's going on in front of me. But on the flip side of that, I definitely do every game like try and take a step back and look around and appreciate the moment that I'm a part of. Like I always tell myself I have the best seat in the house. Like I'm sitting in front of people who are paying thousands of dollars to sit in the front row.
I'm getting paid to do this.
Yeah, but no, I definitely take a moment to kind of look around and soak in those moments.
You mentioned like, sending stuff up to the press box to get posted in game. Kind of explain that process, because I feel like some people, we always see it on Instagram. You'll be scrolling through during a game and all of a sudden you're like, man, like that touchdown that just scored, it's already on Instagram. Like kind of explain, the behind the scenes of how that even happens, how that's able to, like, they're able to produce that.
Yeah. It's a lot of sprinting. I'll tell you that. Like, during the game, the majority of my time I'm in the back of the end zone, which is kind of like the money spot for getting those touchdown shots and angles. So after a play comes my way and player scores right in front of my camera, I'll pick up my camera, I'll run all the way to our media bunker, which is kind of like right in the tunnel where the players run out. So I'll run into there, take my SD card out of my camera, plug it into my laptop, edit the clip very quickly if it needs any editing, make some color adjustments. And then we have a system called Slack. It's pretty much just a messaging app. And I'll drop that video file into there, and then that sends it to everyone else on our digital team who's running the social accounts during the game. So it's kind of like a two-part system where we're down on the field capturing the moments, and then we send it up to the team upstairs, and they're posting it to Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok for Ohio State football, Ohio State athletics, Brutus's account. So it's kind of there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of people involved, but we've got a system down where a big moment happens and it's up for people to see on social minutes after.
That's crazy to think about, that you are sometimes editing these clips like on the fly, like editing, color adjustments, does that come with a lot of experience of just knowing, like, all right, like, is like with color adjustments, I've never quite understood that personally. Like, is that just come with experience and like knowing what's going to look good, or is it kind of like a play, like a guess every time?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is experience and like doing it so many times, you get the reps in. So you kind of like, it's almost like muscle memory, like everywhere I need to click and which apps I need to open at this point. But once you get the hang of it, it's pretty turnkey game to game. I'll say like the biggest thing that changes each week is like the lighting. If we're playing a noon game in Columbus, the lighting is going to be different than if we have a 3:00 kickoff compared to obviously if we have a night game. So there's that aspect. And then if we're on the road, away team stadium colors are different. Like if we're playing at Northwestern, there's a lot of purple in that stadium where you're not going to get those tones and colors in Columbus. So it kind of changes week to week, but overall, like once you do it so much, you kind of get in a rhythm and know what you're doing to do it quickly.
Man, that's just, I don't know, that's just crazy. Cause like, I mean, I don't do much editing. There's times like where I'll take a picture from work of an excavator and like just be sitting around at lunch and just messing with the editing and be like, oh yeah, that kind of looks cool. And I'll send it to my boss and he's like, how'd you do that? And I was like, dude, I'm just guessing. I don't know what I'm doing. But like, it's crazy to think like you guys are doing that. And like, I mean, what's the time take if you have to edit, do some color adjustments? Like, what's the typical time of like from when you left the end zone, you get to the bunker, how long until you're sending it upstairs?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that has to do with which end zone we score in. So like the one side of the field is right by the bunker. The opposite side is 100 yards away, so we have to run all the way down. So that depends a little bit on how quick we are. But I mean, we could get a clip up on social within like 2 to 3 minutes after it happens in the stadium.
That's crazy. That's I mean, people don't realize that. They're just like, we live in a social media world, I think sometimes, where it's like everything's at the, the touch of our fingers. Like all we got to do is get on our phone and we can figure out how tall this person is or how much the rock weighs. Like you can figure out everything in like 30 seconds. but like they don't realize the people that it takes to kind of get that to in certain spots. And I mean, it's just a crazy, like, I don't think people truly appreciate it, which, following you for a long time and knowing you since college, like I've seen the work a little, like obviously not all the behind the scenes, but kind of understood a little bit more through you of like, it takes a lot of work for that to happen. So I do truly appreciate it because it makes us happy when we're able to, share that on our story 30 minutes or 20 minutes later.
Yeah.
But what, like, you ended up getting to go to, the college football playoffs. What was that experience like, being kind of the biggest stage in college football? I mean, despite the unfortunate, results, but kind of what was it like being in the biggest stage in college football?
Yeah, I mean that experience was awesome. That, like, those are the games and moments that I dreamed about and have wanted to be a part of. But I mean the whole CFP experience was great. We were in Georgia. We got them down there about 5 days before kickoff. So we were down there for the week. Kind of had some different events and press conferences and media days going on. Georgia's nice because everything's kind of centralized there. You could walk from the stadium to the College Football Hall of Fame to the team hotel. So it was really nice and super easy to get around. But I mean, that game was probably the loudest game I've ever shot. The atmosphere in there is like, it's different. Like you can tell when the stage is bigger, you definitely feel it. There's just something different about being down there on those games. Definitely the loudest game I've shot, different energy. And I mean, for the game to end like that, it hurt. Shooting a national championship and shooting a Super Bowl are the two things that are kind of driving me in my career right now. And to be that close to one of those things and have it end in that fashion hurt. But it's also kind of cool to think of how close we were and wanting to get back to that kind of motivates me to keep going.
It almost feels like you almost treat yourself as a part of the team, and which is really kind of cool to see. Like, and I'm not, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but like it almost feels like you feel like a part of the team because it's maybe you're welcome that way too. Like, the team appreciates you. Obviously, like some of the players are like, oh, he's about to get some really cool shots of me. So of course I'm not going to say or making any big deal about it. But like, do you feel a part of the team?
Yeah, for sure. And I think honestly, I compare like content creators' game day routine. It's very similar to the players in the sense, like, at the end of the day, we're both showing up to the stadium locked in, ready to do our jobs. Our jobs are very different, but we're both showing up wanting to be elite and the best at what we do. So I think there's kind of a mutual understanding and respect when it comes to that and like being around the guys. But I mean, like, we're moving with them on game day. Like we're listening to our pregame music before we show up to the stadium, just like they are.
I was going to ask, like, what's your game day routine?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, my mentality when on a game day, like when I'm driving to the stadium, like I'm locked in, like I'm about to go play a game. Like, I listen to a lot of like hip hop, rap. Drake's my guy, so I'm always blasting some Drake on my drive into the stadium. But no, it's cool. It's definitely like I said, like that mutual respect. They know we're there to do a job, and we know they're there to do a job, obviously too.
How big are they, like, I guess you want to call it a team? Like, how many guys do you guys have on the field shooting during the game?
Yeah, so for NFL on game day, there's 3 of us that are shooting live video content. At Ohio State, we got a little bit bigger team. There will be, I want to say, there's usually 2 or 3 video that are doing what I'm doing in game. We have 2 photographers who are sending photos in game. And then we have a really big student intern team who we lean on a lot, not just for football, but for, like, Ohio State has 36 varsity sports. So we really lean on our intern team to help cover those sports. But I think a football game day, like, we'll have probably 12 to 13, 14 shooters down on the field getting content for us.
So what's the big reason you think because like the people shooting like what's the big reason for the big a little bit bigger of a difference? I know you have more interns in the college football, but is it because like in the NFL you have the elite, like you have guys that are doing like they're all good, versus college you might have some that are, I mean, Ohio State might be a little different, but like what's the difference between, why do you have such a big difference in the number of people on the field during game day?
Yeah, I think like the barrier for entry in college football is a lot lower compared to the NFL. Like if you're a local Columbus news station or newspaper, it's a lot easier for you to get a credential to shoot Ohio State on Saturday than to go to Cleveland on a Sunday for the Browns. So like I think that's a big part of it, is the way the media credential system is set up. And honestly, like almost to a fault at Ohio State, like on our big games, like when we're playing the team up north, there's so many shooters down on the field, like it's hard to find a spot. The sidelines are packed, where like looking at the sidelines of the Super Bowl, like there's not too many people there. And there's a reason for it. Like it's hard to get to those stages. Like you have to be really good at what you do. And everyone is there for a reason. So I think that's honestly the biggest difference.
You had also, I wanted to talk too about the one shot you had. I saw, it was weird because it was like almost in order, but like I saw the picture from the playoffs of the helmet with the sky view of the stadium at the college football playoffs. And then I remember like scrolling down through Instagram, and like 10 pictures later, I saw, I think it was your video of it, or maybe I don't know how it got posted, but kind of, is it cool to be like scrolling on Instagram and see your own stuff and see, the NFL post one of your videos, Ohio State post one of your videos? Is that like kind of like the ultimate reward, or kind of basically what drives you to keep trying to get stuff out there?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, I don't know. I'm so used to it now. Like that's my job description. So like it doesn't really affect me like it used to, like seeing teams post my stuff. But honestly, the biggest thing that drives me now is like knowing that the content that I shoot and the videos I make, at the end of the day, they're going to live on longer than I'll be around on this earth. So it's cool to like capture these big historic moments and create essentially a piece of art that people will be able to look back on for years to come. That's part of it. And also like being a Division III athlete, we didn't have people covering our games like the Division I and NFL players do.
We just got lucky with you.
Yeah, right. Right. So I think that's another motivating thing for me, is like capturing these moments for the athletes. And I know that like that's something they appreciate. And these are shots that, they'll have to look back on their career when they're done playing at Ohio State and show to their kids and show to their grandkids. So those are kind of like the two things that motivate me the most now.
Do you still have the spreadsheet?
I do.
Talk about it. I gotta have you talk about it because I love it. And like that's one of the things I look at with you. And like honestly, I think everybody should kind of have this mentality coming out of college or coming out of high school, of if you want to achieve something, this like your spreadsheet idea, just talk about it. I just love the idea.
Yeah. So I graduated college in 2020, and like I said, I knew I wanted to create and get to the highest level possible. For me, that was Ohio State and the NFL. So I was applying to as many jobs as I could. I didn't care where it was. I didn't care what team, what sport. If I saw a job, content creator, videography, I was applying for it. And a lot of people were telling me no. A lot of people were declining my job applications. A lot of people weren't responding to my emails, my applications, my DMs, my messages to them. And that kind of motivated me to keep me going. And I kept a spreadsheet of every position I ever applied for, the title of it, the team, the location. And there were a lot of reds on that spreadsheet of people that told me no, or never got back to me, or told me I wasn't ready or I wasn't good enough. And that was my motivating factor to keep me going, is when those reds stacked up and they kept stacking, like I wanted to be able to one day have one of those reds turn green and someone tell me yes and give me an opportunity and kind of like move with this chip on my shoulder that one day I would get to a spot where I could look back at all these other people that told me no, and when I had the confidence in myself and they didn't. So that I still have it today on my desktop, the spreadsheet, and that has always been my motivating factor. And I think I tell that story to a lot of people who reach out to me for advice. Like, it's really hard to break into the industry of what I do. And I think the biggest separating factor is like how far you're willing to go and keep pushing until someone tells you yes. Because if I quit on the 70th person that told me no, I wouldn't be here. It took me over 100 no's to get to one yes. And I think that's something a lot of people don't realize. They think, I just graduated college and ended up at the NFL and Ohio State, but they don't see all the people that told me no. They don't see all quote unquote, like the hardships along the journey. So I think that's a cool story, and a cool piece and spreadsheet that I still look back today and kind of like remember of how far I've come.
What I like that you said, you talked about, you had a lot of red, and it can be very discouraging too when you get told no a lot. I mean, there's been, I don't know how many people I've tried to have on the podcast that have been like, no, or just don't respond. And it can be discouraging sometimes, but like, you're going to have that red, you're going to have those no's. But like you said, all it takes is that one yes, and you don't know when that one yes is going to come unless you just keep going. Because that's what the other thing, like you had lots. It's not just, you can't just do it like 3 times and expect like, oh no, it's just not meant to be. No, like if it's what you want, it's going to take a lot of effort. Like you got to keep going. Because I mean, you wouldn't have ended up probably where you are today if you would have quit after 10, 20, 30, like you said, even 70. You wouldn't be where you're at. It takes time, and you just have to keep going, because eventually somebody is going to say yes. Or even that person that you bugged 3 times is finally going to be like, you know what, like let's just do it. Like we'll give you a chance, and then they might be the best chance they ever made. But you have to make the most of that yes that you were given. You can't just be like, all right, I got the yes, like this is the answer, I'm good now. No, like as we've seen with you, you kept going. You kept striving for better. You just wanted to perfect your craft essentially. And it's really cool to see. I don't know, the spreadsheet, it gets me fired up because I love seeing it. I love seeing, it's kind of like the underdog story, but not in a way. Like it just kind of, it takes some time. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, no, I love telling that story. I think part of it too is like people need to be, I think, self-aware of where they're at. And, you really need to look at people in the industry that you want to get into and people who are in positions you want to get into, and recognize what the difference between them and yourself is. Like when I started out, I would look at content creators who were shooting for these teams and the NFL, and I would look at their work and ask myself, what's the difference between them and me? And then you kind of like backwards engineer and take bits and pieces of their work, of what separates them from you, and kind of mold it into your own craft. So I think that's the first part, is recognizing where that gap is and working to improve at your skill set. And then once you get that part done, like you have to be self-confident. And like I went to a Division III school, like people like me don't get to the NFL. And like a lot of people doubted me, and like some of my friends laughed at me when I told them I wanted to work for the NFL one day. Like, what? You went to a Division III school? What are you talking about? You want to get to the NFL? So I think those are the two things. Like, be self-aware of where you're at and where you need to be, and then once you get there, have that self-confidence to be persistent in that search.
Being self-aware and understand, like, if you're not where you're at, where you're like where you want to be right now, like that's fixable. You can reach out to people, like if in your field, I guarantee, like you're not afraid to be a person that's going to give advice to anybody that messages you. I know you're the person that if somebody messages you about something, you'll give them advice. Reach out to people in the industry. I mean, I'm not afraid to admit that I've reached out to Joe Rogan. Yeah, I haven't got a response, but like you don't know until you give that, like you take that opportunity. I've reached out to a lot of other podcasters. A lot of them have reached back to me, and like we've talked about things and kind of figured some things out. Just no matter what industry it is in, if you reach out to people, people are more likely willing to help you than you think. I think a lot of us are scared to ask, but like if somebody reaches out to me, I love it. I love when somebody reaches out to me because it's really fun to be like, man, they're asking my advice. And it's like, oh, wait, I do know something. I do know what I'm doing. Sometimes it's the reminder, but like, it's, don't be afraid to reach out to people to try and figure out, try and learn and get better at what you're doing.
Yeah, for sure.
What is your favorite type of shot to take? Like, is it a touchdown? Is it what? I don't know. Is because like you did some defensive stuff with Myles Garrett, so you were shooting mainly defensive type stuff. What is your favorite type of shot in a game?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, for me, I like to capture moments from angles that you don't see on the TV broadcast. I think that's always like the main priority in whatever I'm shooting on game day. Like I said earlier, I love the time from team run out to coin toss. And I think that's a part of game day where emotions are the highest. Like getting guys kneeling in the end zone, praying before the national anthem, those kind of shots. Like that's the stuff you don't see about the game when you're watching it on TV. And then also obviously, like, I love the touchdown shots, especially when they come right to my camera. They make my job a lot easier when they're doing a cool celebration right in front of me. But yeah, it's about telling the story of the game from a unique perspective that people don't see on TV and people in the stadium don't see because they're not that close to the action.
What's up, everybody? I hope you're enjoying today's guest. A lot of people ask me how they can support the Roughnecks podcast. So I wanted to take a quick break to tell you the best way to support the podcast is to buy and wear merch. We have merch available on our website, from hats, t-shirts, long sleeves, sweatshirts, and even coffee cups. There are even youth sizes available for the kids. Head over to roughneckspodcast.com and make your purchase today. Thank you for all the support, but let's get back to today's guest. What was your camera setup like? Is your camera setup changed? I feel like it has since college. I'm not going to understand any of it, but I still have to ask the question for people that may be listening and understand it. So, like, what is your camera setup from when you started till now?
Yeah. So I've always shot on Sony cameras. When I was at OWU, I think my first camera was a Sony A6000, which is probably like a $400 or $500 camera. Really good camera for anyone looking to start out. So that was my camera the whole season I was in college. After I graduated, I got a Sony A7 III, got a nicer lens. I think that camera is around $2,000 now. So I used that camera for an entire year freelancing out of college. I used that for my first season with the NFL. And then I just upgraded and got my third camera prior to this past NFL season and my first season with Ohio State, which is the Sony A1, which is a $6,000 camera. So that's kind of been the progression of my equipment when I have gone throughout the years. But I think a big misconception that people have about camera gear is that more expensive camera equals better shots, and that's not the case. The biggest thing with getting those crispy shots is understanding your camera settings, and that is something I did not do when I was in college. There's a lot more to shooting than flipping on the camera and pressing record. You got to understand things about composition, like your frame rate, shutter speed, your aperture, your ISO, what picture profile are you shooting in, all these things that go into creating a quote unquote look when you see the end product. So I think it's important to understand that before you go spending thousands of dollars on camera equipment.
Yeah, I remember you recently posted a video, I think, of like what you started with some of the OWU footage and then what you're doing now. I showed some guys at work that because they were asking who I was recording with tonight, and I was like showing them some of your videos on Instagram and stuff, and they were like, Oh, that's all right. And then they like saw like the new stuff and they're like, holy shit. And I'm like, yeah, like the dude does big time things. But
Yeah,
it's really cool to just to see from the outside looking in, to see your progression, to see the way that you have grown in your industry, and to see like I feel like you're never satisfied.
yeah.
Like
No,
which is
that's
really cool to see.
yeah. No, I want to keep going. I know I've done a lot of cool things so far, but I feel like I've just scratched the surface of like what my skills can be as a creator.
I think
So
you've
that's
said that every time that you've been on here.
yeah, yeah, man. I feel like there's no ceiling with it. Like I'm gonna learn more. I'm gonna do new things and go to new places. So I'm just always hunger and eager to keep going.
I like it. That's a very good mindset to have, no matter what it is that you're doing in life. Like, I mean, let's be real. Like, we never know everything about one subject. Like, they're like, no matter what it is, you're never gonna know it all. Like, you might be the best, but you still don't know everything. So, why not continue to try and get better every single day at what you do?
Yeah. No, I have no idea what I'm doing. I just show up every day and try and act like it.
I mean, that's pretty much what I do with this podcast. I just get on here like, so we're going to talk about some things and I'm going to go on the fly and figure it out. But what is your favorite shot of all the times that you've been like all these years that you've been taking shots? What's your favorite one that you can remember?
Mm, that's tough because I feel like there's so many. I think um, one of them from this past NFL season was from I think it was a primetime game when we were playing the Steelers, and it was a night game in Cleveland. And right at the end of the national anthem, they shoot fireworks up from the top of the stadium. And I've been chasing this shot for a while of like getting low and shooting up, like facing a player, and then getting the fireworks going up in the background. And I finally hit it on that game, and the shot is just so sick. Like the sky is pitch black, and these orange fireworks going up like right over the player's shoulders. I forget who it was. It might have been Kareem Hunt with the
I think
Browns.
it was, if I remember right.
That shot's definitely one of my favorites, and definitely one I'm going to try and recreate for the next night game I shoot. And then probably my favorite Ohio State shot was we were on the road at Northwestern. And I think this was like the first time during the season that CJ ran the ball, and his reaction after that run, like he got up and flexed and screamed at my camera. And that shot went pretty viral, I think, after we posted it, just because it was a really dope angle and a dope shot of CJ showing emotion when he's usually a guy who's pretty calm, cool, and collected, and you don't really see that side of him. So to be there to capture that was probably another one of my favorites.
Do you sometimes, I don't want to say hate, but like hate when that happens, when you have a player that makes like a super big play and you're filming them and then they just stand up and hand the ball to the official and you're like, do something.
Yeah, that's Nick Chubb for you. He is like he will score a touchdown, and I swear I've never seen him smile. Like he just flips the ball to the ref and then trots back to the bench. Like I think him and Amari Cooper on the Browns, like they will score touchdowns and they will never crack a smile. They will never celebrate. So I always love selfishly when players, when they're dancing and doing celebrations and cool stuff like that. Like that makes for better content.
Well, it makes your job a little bit easier.
Little bit.
Do you, I wanted to ask too, kind of going back to the camera stuff, I forgot to ask, but what are your thoughts on drones? And like, obviously you can't necessarily use them during the game, but like, do you do any drone type stuff, or is that just kind of like not a no go for you?
Yeah, I have a drone. I honestly don't really use it too much. Like I think I maybe flew it like 2 or 3 times last year. I think drones are cool. I think the future is getting more towards FPV drones. I don't know if you've seen any videos with those, but they're like the pilot of the drone is wearing FPV goggles, like he's playing a video game, and you're able to maneuver and do way crazier stunts at higher speeds with those drones. and those have kind of been like, that's more trendy in the creative space where I work at now. We've been trying to do something with an FPV drone at Ohio State, but there's so many guidelines and regulations and laws of where you can fly them. Can people be in proximity to the drone flying? So I think we have some cool stuff that we're working on at Ohio State. We haven't done anything yet, but I think when it comes to drones, I think FPV is definitely the future there.
Yeah, because like our industry that I'm in with like I install fiberglass pools and patios and stuff, like drone shots are like some of the best shots. And I'm about to get into being the media guy, being the guy that goes just take pictures, which I'm not going to be doing anything crazy like what you're doing, but like I'm doing just simple, basic pictures. And that's what I wanted to ask, because I'm just curious on like that drone necessarily doesn't work. Like, it wouldn't make it worth it for our industry because it's a standstill object. It's a landscape. So like you can get a normal drone, I feel like up, but I don't know. Drones, I'm about to learn how to fly one, so it's about to be interesting. I'm just gonna take it out on a day out to my sister's who lives on 60 acres, so then I have plenty of room to not maybe crash it.
Yeah, I've crashed a drone before. They're honestly not too difficult to learn how to fly, especially for what you're trying to do. Like if you just go to open field and start learning there, like it's like a video game. Like you have the joysticks.
Yeah.
It's pretty self-explanatory and really not too difficult to learn.
What do you know now that you wish you knew when you started?
Well, I think a lot of the technical skills, like I said earlier, are things that I did not understand when I first started out. Camera settings, like how switching things in your settings will make your shot look a different way. And that's one thing, like if I learned that early on, I feel like my shots early in my career would have been a lot better. So I think that on the technical side of things, but also like, I don't know, I feel like now that I'm in the industry, and have kind of more like solidified myself where I'm at in my career, I have a better understanding now of how college athletics works and how the NFL works and the structures of these creative teams and organizations, like almost more like on the business side of things. It's kind of hard to learn and understand those things until you're in it every day, if that makes sense. So I think that's a lot of it. And also like, I don't know, when you're in it and you're in, like I'm in so many meetings now where I am not the smartest person in the room. So I think that's always an emphasis for me, is like trying to be surrounding myself with people who are smarter than me. I think that's how you learn the most and the quickest. So like that's a big thing for me now is being a part of those conversations, and learning from my coworkers, because I work with a lot of talented people. So showing up to work every day and learning from them.
When you're not the smartest person in the room, especially, that's the time to shut up. Like you can ask questions, but like I see a lot of people, and that's where they struggle sometimes, where like they'll be in a room with people that are smarter than them, that know more about whatever subject it is, but they just want to act like they know everything. Don't be that person. Be the person that is a sponge, that just sits there, listens, ask questions when you need to, or if it's something that you do know about, make your input, but don't be the person that's just over there talking, because you're going to ruin it for everybody and you're not making yourself look any better. So just like surrounding yourself with people that are smarter than you is one of the best things that you can do in any type of career, no matter what career it is. Whether it's reading, even if it means reading a book by a person in that industry that is better at it than you, that's the best thing to do, because it will help you. It'll put you years ahead sometimes in front of other people. A guy about my boss, he, before we started putting in pools, he went to another company in another state, watched them install pools, kind of learn from them for a couple of days, and he's like, they saved me years because there's little things that you learn through that it saves me years of like trial and error that I just, this is how the way to, like, yeah, this is the way that the manufacturers teach you, but like this is really how it should be done to save you X amount of time. So like they're being the smart, try not to be the smartest person in the room. Surround yourself with people that are better than you, that are smarter than you, because it's just gonna boost you years ahead.
100%. Be a sponge.
Be a sponge is big. Sometimes it's hard, but being a sponge is huge. If you could give any advice to a beginner, like somebody that doesn't even have a camera, but this is what they want to do, what is kind of maybe, I don't want to say the cheapest, but like the best way to go into it? Because like, you know, people think, like you mentioned, like camera gear is expensive. Like you said, camera expensive isn't always the best. So like, what advice would you give to somebody that's getting into it and about to go buy their first camera? Like what kind of camera would you maybe recommend? Would you recommend a camera that you got first, or what would it be?
Yeah, I mean, I think the best camera is the one you have, and we all have an iPhone. The first videos I ever made were in high school, and I was shooting on my iPhone and editing on iMovie. So I think, you know, you can start there if you don't need a fancy camera to start. I would say that. As far as cameras starting out, I really like Sony. I'm team Sony. I think anything in the Sony Alpha line, like the A6000, is a really good beginner camera to kind of get your hands on your first camera and learn those camera settings. Definitely recommend that camera. But advice other than that, I feel like a lot of people will DM me and ask me, like, how do I get my videos to look like yours? How do I get my colors to look like yours? And it's almost like they're looking for some kind of piece of advice that's going to change their content overnight, when in reality, that's not how it works. And I feel like a lot of people don't understand that. And the way you level up your content is going out and shooting as much as you can, getting your reps in. Like I compare content creating to weightlifting. If you want to squat 400 pounds, you go into the gym every single day and you stack up your reps and stack up your weight. Same thing with shooting. Like during 2020, when I was freelancing, and every single day I would pick up my camera and shoot something. Like I would go out into the backyard and shoot my dog running around, or shoot my car in the garage and see if I can make a cool video out of it. Like, it doesn't matter what you're shooting, as long as you got your hands on the camera, you're going out somewhere, you're figuring it out as you go. Like, that's the biggest thing. You can't sit back and want to be great. You got to go out there and do it.
Yeah, like this isn't going to be stuff that you're necessarily posting all over social media. It's your learning. It's your notes, essentially. Like for class, it is your notes to figure out how to pass the test. And the one thing you said is, you know, the best camera is the one in your hands or in front of you. I forget exactly what you said, but it's very weird that you say that, because I'm just started reading a book kind of about podcast. It is a podcast type book, and it was talking about, like, everybody wants to know what's the best microphone, and the best microphone is the one in front of you. It doesn't matter what kind of microphone, it doesn't matter what kind of camera you have, just make the most of what you have. Like, learn it, understand it. Because, I mean, I know every one of my microphones. I know the ones that I have to be close on. I know the ones that I can step away from. Like, I know how all of it works. I know how my soundboard, like, and it's because I literally sat down here, and people, if anybody was watching, probably thought I was crazy because I was talking to myself, saying random stuff, just pushing buttons, trying to figure everything out, like figure out what sounds the best. And it's the same, like you're just going out shooting your dog, shooting your car, like just doing random stuff, because that's the best way to perfect your craft. Like that's the best way to learn. That's the best way to figure out those camera settings, which is one of the questions I was going to ask you. Like, how does somebody learn? Go out and shoot random things. Different times of day too, I feel like is a big thing that they need to do, maybe from the things that I've been hearing from you, like, because you're going to have, especially if you're in like this, any world really, but you're going to have different times of day that, you know, certain things probably work in the morning, but don't work in the evening, but don't work in the afternoon. Like, so I don't know. It's just the best thing that you have is what you have. So make the most of it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like part of that too is that we have so many resources just at our fingertips. Like I watched so many YouTube tutorials of camera settings and how to shoot football when I was first starting out. Like don't be ashamed of searching up stuff like that, because I still do it to this day when I don't know how to do something. Like go to YouTube and type it in.
It's there. Use it. It's free.
Yeah.
I mean, the worst that happens is you learn something that you're not even learn. Like you just listen to something that you already knew. Like, but why not? Instead of, spending 2 hours in bed scrolling through Instagram, why not watch a video on YouTube that maybe that'll help you in your career, whatever type of career this may be. But, this is going to go into the final segments of the podcast. And I do have a question. I definitely have asked you, but I'm going to ask you again. I have a question that I ask all my guests, and is if you could go back in time and tell your 16-year-old self one thing, what would it be?
Man, I feel like I would tell myself to not care about other people's opinions. And not that I was influenced by them when I was that age, but like it doesn't matter what other people think. As long as you believe in yourself, if you have goals and you want to get to a certain place, if you think you can do it, that's all that matters. Because I think your dreams aren't big enough if people aren't doubting you. That's a big thing. Like dream big, do something crazy that not everyone does. That's what I think I would say.
Man, that's I'm gonna save that one maybe for a little bit later, but your dreams are big enough if no one's doubting you. Man, that's a good one. Like not caring about other people's opinions though, that I can understand you 100%, because from a personal experience, like if you'd have told me at 16, if somebody would have been like, dude, you should start a podcast, I'd have been like, absolutely not. Like I would have cared too much what other people thought. Even when I started this one, I think I was 21 when I started it, 22 probably. I think I was 22 when I started this one. I was still worried. I didn't want to post it on my personal social media. I didn't want to post, like, I didn't really want to let people know about it. And still, honestly, kind of a little bit to this day, like I don't go, I wear my Roughnecks, sweatshirt, t-shirt all the time. But, like I had somebody, I play volleyball in a sand volleyball league in the summers and stuff. And I was playing, somebody on my team that I didn't really know. I was playing on another team for somebody, and they're like, hey, you have that podcast, don't you? I was like, yep. And that was the end of the conversation, because I was like, I'm not, like, this is like, if somebody I know, I'm going into like a 20-minute conversation with you and you got to pull me away. But like, you worry too much about the other people's opinions, because I don't know why we do it, but it's not worth it. Just put it out there, because you never know what's going to happen. Be you, be yourself. Don't worry what other people think, because if they think negatively of who you are because of how you're being, then those aren't the people that you need in your life anyway. Those are the people that you need to start cutting out.
Yeah, no, 100%. You gotta prioritize your happiness, and if you're doing something that makes you happy, that should be all that matters. And like, I do it in my work every time. Like, I don't make videos because I hope and think that other people will think they're cool. I make videos that I think are dope, and I'll put them out for the world to decide. But at the end of the day, I sleep well at night knowing that I made something that I think is cool. Love it or hate it, I love it. And for me, that's all that matters.
Do you ever have the videos that you think are super dope, but then you look at your social media like interactions and you're like, why is this not performing the way I want it to?
Yeah. Nah, I mean, that's the nature of social media. Like, I could spend 10 hours editing a video, and I'll post a TikTok that took me 10 minutes and that gets double the engagement. Like, that's just the name of the game. Like, some stuff will pop off like that. Some stuff doesn't, but I really I do not care about the numbers at all. Like, I'm just making stuff that I think is cool.
I know you don't care about the numbers, but I got to ask, like, what do you feel is like the best engagement social media app? Because like, let's be honest, social media is a part of everyone's world today. As much as it sometimes sucks, but social media is a part of everyone's world. Where do you see probably the most engagement? I think I know the answer, but I'm curious.
Yeah, I think TikTok's big. TikTok is really good with their algorithm and serving your content to people who are going to watch your content. But then Instagram Reels, like I really hit hard on Instagram Reels this past year. And I think understanding both with TikTok and Reels, how using trending audios can help push your content to a bigger audience. Like if you're creating a video with a song or a sound that's trending, like that video has a better chance to pop off than if you were creating an original audio. So that's a big thing. I think, I mean, with Instagram Reels, like I reached new audiences that I have never reached before solely because of the trending audio aspect and understanding how to utilize that in the videos I was making.
See, this is interesting because I have had a person on, I think it was last month, that he's not a big social media guy anymore, but he talked about, he's like, I hate social media and like having to post things and using the trending audio because that's the only way you get recognized. Sometimes it feels like, but we have a guy here that, I mean, you're doing well. So like, there's not necessarily any denying it, but like, it is true. The trending audios, if you want to get recognized using those trending audios, are you hopping on the bandwagon? Maybe, but also your content may be completely different than the next video that used that audio. It's the one, like, I don't like necessarily the ones that you scroll through and it's the same type of video over and over and over again. With you, I feel like, yeah, you're using a trending audio, but you're putting a whole different spin to it.
Yeah. And I think it's one thing to use a trending audio, and the highest level of that is creating a trending audio. And I had one video this past year. The video was 10 seconds long, and it was my most engaged video of the whole season. But I took 10 seconds of a Drake song and I started the video with a shot of me shooting, and then it went into the shots I got during the game. And that became a trend with other creators where they were doing it like with themselves working in their shots. So I think like that video, the audio I created for that sound was used like 400 other times from other creators. And then when they're posting the video, it'll say on their page, see Frank Films original audio. And like, that's honestly the biggest way with Reels and TikTok to gain your audience is when you have an audio that pops off and then it's showing up on other people's pages.
Yeah, because I feel like, I mean, there's times where all of us will click on the sounds. Like we click on the sounds and we want to see the original video. Because like sometimes I do that all the time where I'm like, I want to see there's like an original to this. Like, where did this sound even come from? And I hate when it's like an audio that you know is not the original, but somebody like recorded it. And then like, it sucks sometimes that way. But, you know, I want to see, seeing the originals is really cool. But yeah, social media is I think it was Dante, my buddy, that said it. He said it can be a tool, but it can also, I forget what he called it, but it can also kill you. Like it can put you, like you can be in a weird spot because of social media. I mean, we've all been caught in the endless scroll. There's no one that can say, if you have social media, there's no one that can say that you haven't been caught in the endless scroll of that. I mean, that's why when you go up to Instagram, TikTok, and if you hit refresh, you're hit with something new every single time. You gotta control it, but as a business type of person, like you understand exactly. I understand what you're saying. You have to use social media, otherwise it could hurt you in a way. So it sucks, but social media is a good and bad thing. Depends on how you want to take it.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I feel like if I didn't work in this space, I wouldn't use it nearly as much. For me at this point, I feel like I really only use it on my accounts if I'm posting my work. Like I really like don't even have interest in posting like my personal life on Instagram. Like I just really use it as a portfolio at this point.
I have two separate accounts because I have one for the Roughnecks and I have one for like obviously myself. But I'm gonna look right now because I am curious. My last Instagram post on my personal Instagram was back in October, and my last post on the Roughnecks was probably yesterday. I hardly post on my personal. I post on the Roughnecks just because you kind of have to help with everything, but it is what it is.
Yeah. I don't know. I kind of find peace in being off the grid and people not knowing what I'm doing when I'm not shooting football.
If I could move to Montana or Colorado or out west and just no one ever heard from me again, I'd be plenty fine with it. But this moves us into the best segment of the podcast, which is Motivation Monday. Motivation Monday is the point in the episode where I allow a guest to give the Roughnecks listeners a little inspirational bump to set the tone for their week as they listen on Monday morning. So what do you got for Motivation Monday?
Yeah, I kind of touched on it earlier, but like my biggest thing is something that I told myself and something that I tell people who reach out now is like, dream big. This life we live is way too short for you to wake up every day and not love what you're doing. And that's okay if you're doing it now, but you should be working towards happiness and what drives you. Find your passion. Like everyone has something they like to do. For me, that was being around football and social media, and I found a way to mix the two. The thing I'm most proud of is being able to wake up every single day and love going into work. And that's something that not a lot of people can say. So like that's my biggest piece of advice is dream big. It's not going to happen overnight, but like chase that happiness, chase that passion of what drives you until you can do it every single morning when you wake up.
Dream big. I think we found a new title of this episode, but dreaming big is, I've had a lot of people on that have talked about that, and kind of going off what you said, like you have people laugh at if you don't have people laughing at you, then you're probably not dreaming big enough. You're probably trying to settle for the comfort. Like you had people that did not think that you'd be shooting for the NFL, did not think that you'd be at the college football playoffs shooting, the biggest stage, one of the biggest stages in college football, shooting for the Cleveland Browns, even that year that they were incredibly good. Like there's people that aren't going to believe in you, and you've talked about it. Use it as motivation. Use it. Let it fuel you. Freaking David Goggins takes people that his hate comments, records them, and will listen to it while he runs. That dude's a completely different breed than anybody I've ever seen in my life. But still, like, that's the thing. Use your haters, use the people that are going to try and discourage you to drive you. I've had a lot of people try and tell me the job I'm doing or the podcast. Are you sure that's what you want to do? Are you sure that's right? But like you said, if you wake up every day, you wake up excited to go to work. Are you really working? You're enjoying your life. Why? Like I've seen so many people in their life, like in my experience of people that go to work or complain about work constantly. They hate work. They hate this person. They hate that. Then why are you still there? Everything's available to us. You can go get another job. Okay, I don't have the qualifications for it. It's available. Go get it. Like if you want something, it's all available to us to go get. So stop making excuses and just dream big and go get it.
Yeah, I love it. I think kind of to piggyback off that, I really believe, and I was having this conversation with a coworker the other week. I really believe that anyone can do anything they want to in this life. And like, I also believe that people are put on this earth to do a specific thing. Like if I wanted to be a master chef, I truly believe I could go be a master chef. I don't know how to cook right now, but if I dedicated my life and every day I woke up to learning how to be a master chef, I believe in 30 years I could get to that level. And like the same thing goes for me in my career now. Like I wanted to be a content creator, and I dedicated every single day to learning that skill set. I also believe that I was put on this earth to do exactly what I'm doing now. So for me, that skill gap is much shorter, where maybe it took me 2 years to do this, but it's going to take me 50 years to learn how to cook. I think the key for everyone is recognizing and finding out what their thing is that they're good at and what they should be doing.
And sometimes you got to sit down. Like, that's the thing, is like, people are like, I don't know what I'm good at. Have you ever thought about it? Like, have you ever sat down and thought, like, I'm a person who journals every day, mostly every day, say, but like, you know, I'll write things down of like, and it's just for my own thoughts of like, what are my short-term goals? What are my medium-term, like, what are my long-term goals? Like, what do I want? And those are going to change. But then I go into depth. Like, you have to sometimes sit down with yourself, and like writing it down for me personally helps, because it's like you're putting it on paper. Like, you're thinking about it kind of twice, and then like you're re-seeing it later or whatever. And like, anything's possible. Anything is possible. I just finished a book. It's called Objective Secure. It's actually sitting right beside me. That's kind of what hit me. You know, it was a guy he was a military guy, he was overseas, leg got shot off, and he is an above the knee amputee, and ended up going back to Afghanistan. First person to ever pass all these tests, do all this stuff. But it's like, everybody thought he was crazy for wanting to get back to his team, for wanting to do that. They're like, oh, you know, it's the medications from the surgeries. And like, that was his whole mindset of like, this is what I'm going to do. Anything is possible if you put in the work. It takes the work. A lot of people want to forget about the work. It takes the work. And if you want to get to somewhere, it takes work, but it is possible.
100%.
Man, Carter, I appreciate you coming on for the 4th time. I'm sure we will have you back on the podcast, hopefully yet again here in a year or so. Maybe this year, maybe next year, we'll see. But where can people follow you on social media and find your content?
Yeah, it's just C Frank Films on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And I want to say thank you again for having me on. And I also want to say, let's I think the next time I should come on is after I shoot a national championship or Super Bowl. So maybe that's next year, maybe that's 2 years, maybe that's 10 years. But I think
Ohio State wins a national championship, then we're both on a nice high. So I think we really want Ohio State to win one.
No, I'm gonna speak it into existence. That's the next time I'll be back for sure.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about that too if that happens. You know, hopefully that's next year. But speak it into existence, man. I truly appreciate you coming on for the 4th time. But with that, you guys know the deal. Until Friday, life is hard. It is going to knock you down just like a bull does to a bull rider. Don't let that bull of life walk all over you. Get up, grab the bull by the horns, and take control of your life. Roughnecks, out. Thank you guys for tuning in to today's episode of the Roughnecks Podcast. If you liked today's episode, then please be sure to share it with a friend. You can follow the Roughnecks Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Roughnecks Podcast. Head over to roughneckspodcast.com and grab yourself some Roughnecks merch. Until next time, make sure you grab the bull by the horns and take control of your life. Roughnecks, out.